Howdy folks, hope you've all had a great weekend and welcome to Mingles with Jingles, and not just any old episode of Mingles with Jingles, episode 400. I've actually started recording this late because I've had one hell of a busy day. At the moment I have 4 cats and a dog to look after. 2 cats and dog of my own. Then I had to pop around to a friend's house to make sure that her cat was looked after because she's away at Tankfest, and then there's a sort of stray that we've adopted. This is him. His name's Alfie, and he's just such a good little cat. He's not technically a stray. Somebody does own him, as you can maybe see. He has a collar. But apparently the house that he lives in is overrun with children and about 9 other cats, and he just can't stand it, so he spends all of his time outdoors. So between me and my neighbour, we've kind of adopted him. I mean, I'd take him in, but he's an outdoor cat. He wouldn't be happy inside. Plus, there's the small matter of his not actually belonging to me. So between myself and my neighbour, we look after him. She's unfortunately allergic to cats, and she's away at the moment, so I've been looking after him full time. But I don't mind. He's a great, affectionate little cat. I've bought him a little cat house that sits in between my and my neighbour's bins for when the weather turns bad, because he will spend his entire life outdoors if you give him the chance. Anyway, he's a great, happy cat, and I really do like looking after him. I think I might be turning into a crazy old cat lady. Anyway, moving on. I have a bit of bad news to begin this week's episode. I know many of you were looking forward to the return of Workshop Wednesdays because in the last episode I said I was getting my hands on a Hasbro Nerf pulse rifle from Aliens. And that's true. That's not wrong. But as a couple of you pointed out, when I said that the release date for this Nerf version of the iconic Aliens M41 pulse rifle was coming out in October, that wasn't technically incorrect, just it's October 2022. Well, shit. There are alternatives, of course. I could pay nearly $800, probably more than $800 once you take into account shipping fees to get a Sideshow Collectibles non-functional prop replica pulse rifle, but sod that. There are still places who do actually sell the Snow Wolf airsoft versions of the pulse rifle. But the thing is, well, there's a couple of things. First of all, they're still really expensive for something that is basically just going to sit on a shelf as a display piece, because I'm not going to be airsofting with it, even though it's a fully functional airsoft version of the M41 pulse rifle. And the reason I'm not going to be airsofting with it, actually, there are multiple reasons. One, I'm way too old and fat. Plus, my local airsoft site, Combat South, shut down last year, I think, because the people who actually own the land that it's built on have sold it to a property developer, and they're going to be building houses on it. And since I'm no longer playing at Combat South because it doesn't exist anymore, that means I don't have a membership, and in order to buy an airsoft gun here in the UK, you must have a membership card. So, I mean, yeah, all kinds of reasons why I'm not going to be getting an airsoft version. And I'm not going to be getting any of the prop replicas made by people like Sideshow because I'm not made of money. So I guess I'm just going to have to wait the year, which is bad news for anybody who was expecting the return of Workshop Wednesdays anytime soon. So, yeah. Sorry about that. Plus, the house isn't really set up for modelling at the moment. I mean, if I was going to do this pulse rifle and paint it up, the Nerf pulse rifle, and paint it up to look like a proper screen-accurate pulse rifle, I would have to do some serious moving of stuff around. And I do have other stuff to do. I mean, I bought a whole bunch of, because this is the curse of the model maker, the pile of shame, all of the stuff that you bought but never actually got around to making. Far outnumbers the stuff that I bought and did get around to making, and I really should try to sort something out. The only issue is I don't really have the space to have a dedicated model making studio, and you kind of do, especially if you've got pets, especially if those pets are cats that can get into and on top of anything. You really need a dedicated project room where you can shut the door and keep it pet safe. Otherwise, you spend as much time setting everything up and then stowing it away as you do actually modelling. You know, especially if you actually work for a living, like what I do. Don't laugh. Right, YouTubers work. It is a proper job, all right? but you get the idea. Anyway, moving on. So, in view of the fact that this is episode 400 of Mingles with Jingles, I went back and investigated where it all began. Cast your minds back to March the 13th, 2013. In the first episode of Mingles with Jingles, it wasn't actually called Mingles with Jingles because one of the questions in that video, which was called Q&A with the Mighty Jingles, was what are we going to call this Q&A? And the overwhelmingly positive, or should I say the most popular suggestion was Mingles with Jingles. So it was thanks to you guys that this video series is called what it is. So I went back and I rewatched that video. Oh boy, it wasn't very good. I didn't sound very comfortable with the microphone, let me just put it that way. I sounded terrified. It was didn't sound very professional at all. I mean, you know, your mileage may vary as to how professional we sound now, 400 episodes later, but that first episode was rough. That video has had 97,000 views and has 882 comments, and people are still going back and dropping comments on it now. The latest comment was 2 months ago from Sam Bass, who said, "How far have you come, Jingles? I was here when you were Bohemian Eagle." Yeah, that was my original name on YouTube. More on that in a moment. He went on to say, "You started my YouTube addiction and shaped my life more than I even know. Love you, Gnome Overlord." Sam, love you too. But yeah, I was originally Bohemian Eagle on YouTube. Wow, it was way harder than it should have been to get the channel name changed from Bohemian Eagle to the Mighty Jingles. And of course, everybody from the Czech Republic wanted to know why Bohemian Eagle, because of course Bohemia is in the Czech Republic, isn't it? But I didn't actually choose that name. It was a random username put together for me for the Microsoft Internet Gaming Zone or something like that. I can't remember. It was something to do with Microsoft. And the name was just the first suggestion that I liked the look of. And that's where it came from. Sorry, Czech Republic, it's a really boring story. It's just a random name that I pulled out of my arse for some Microsoft service. I do have a good story for you, however. This was sent to me just yesterday by Duncan Stein. Duncan is a silly old sod like me, born in 1970, and he wanted to share with us all a hilarious experience that he had when on a 3D virtual tour of the USS Kidd museum ship. Apparently this is from the World of Warships web portal. He clicked on the link to look around the ship, started on the bridge, turned some corners, wanted to go outside or to a lower deck, saw some stairs going down, so he took a right turn. Now, before we show you what it was that Duncan saw on his virtual 3D tour of the USS Kidd, you have to bear one thing in mind. On this virtual tour of the ship, every time you look down at your feet, the spot where your feet would be is blurred. Okay? So remember that. So he's standing on the top of this ladder, looking down in this virtual 3D tour. And this is what he sees. Now, I don't know who that lady is, and I have no idea what she's doing. Whatever it is, I'm sure it's perfectly innocent. But what it looks like she's doing. Oh my God. Now, if you want to try to get to the bottom of this mystery yourself, Duncan did provide me with the link to the virtual ship tour of the USS Kidd, and I will put that link into the video description. I think when all's said and done, we should all probably be very grateful that you can't actually see that poor lady's face. Because that is not the kind of fame that you generally want to have on the internet. That poor woman. Wrong place, wrong time. I just hope her kids don't watch Mingles with Jingles. I'll tell you who does watch Mingles with Jingles. Brandon Larson. Stand up, Brandon. I know you're watching. Your 15, well, not 15 minutes. Your 30 seconds of fame is here. Brandon's birthday is on the 23rd on Thursday. He'll be 24. You see, Brandon, I do read your messages. I just don't always reply to them. It would not be physically possible for me to reply to all of the messages that I receive every day, particularly sponsorship messages. You know, once your YouTube channel or Twitch channel reaches a certain size, it's inevitable that marketing companies are going to approach you and try to get you to sell stuff using your name. And there's nothing, fundamentally wrong with that as long as you genuinely like and use and are happy to recommend the stuff that they want to use your name to sell. I've done a couple of sponsorships in the past. I mean, I'm always happy to recommend Audible because books are fantastic and people should read more. And if your situation prevents actually picking up a physical book and reading it because, I don't know, maybe you spend a lot of time on the road, then Audible is really, really good. So I'm always happy to do Audible sponsorships. I've started doing NordPass sponsorships as well because, security is important and trying to remember all of your passwords is a pain in the arse. The alternative, of course, is just using the same password on everything, and that's terrible. So, yeah, Password Manager, again, something that I do use and something that I'm happy to recommend. And in the last, I don't know, 4 years or so, I have received a lot of sponsorship offers, most of which I don't take advantage of. Raycon earbuds, for example. Perfect example. Not that there's anything wrong with Raycon earbuds. They're not the best earbuds in the world, but they're pretty good and they're pretty cheap. And you might think that, if I'm recommending Audible, then getting a Raycon earbud sponsorship would be the natural thing to do. And initially, that's exactly what I thought. If you're listening to your audiobook, listen to them with your earbuds. And again, I must stress, there's nothing intrinsically wrong here with Raycon as a brand. But when I started using earbuds for that exact purpose, listening to my audiobooks, I ran into some fairly significant problems. First, because they use Bluetooth for connectivity, there is a not insignificant amount of audio lag. So if you're trying to use them to watch YouTube or Netflix or Amazon Prime Video or whatever on your mobile device, there's desync between what you see and what you hear. Now, that's not an issue if you're listening to an audiobook, but what is an issue if you're using them to listen to an audiobook is, well, there have been some fairly significant changes to society over the last nearly 2 years or so. A lot of people are staying at home a lot more and having things delivered rather than going out and buying them for themselves. So I started using my earbuds to listen to audiobooks when I was in the kitchen cooking things, and then very quickly realized if somebody's knocking at the door with an Amazon delivery, which happens every couple of days, I'm not going to hear it. I'm going to miss a delivery. So I couldn't use them for that. So what else am I going to actually use these earbuds for? Maybe when I go to bed at night and I'm watching videos on the phone? Well, yeah, but there's audio lag. And I don't need the earbuds. I can just, listen to the phone. So, yeah, ended up, again, nothing wrong with the brand or the product itself, but just something that I was never, ever going to use, and therefore not something I could, in all good conscience, recommend, because I had no useful experience of using it. So this is an issue, because it's very easy to just take the money, but what price do you put on your integrity? You see, I've always been firmly of the opinion that if it's not something I'm genuinely using myself and not something that I'm genuinely prepared to recommend, something that I think you may find useful, then yeah, no thanks. Now, on the one hand, that does mean I have left an absurd amount of money on the table over the last 4 years, simply by just not accepting every single sponsorship that I get offered. On the other hand, though, I do think that as far as the long-term health of my YouTube channel is concerned, that's probably actually a good thing. Because I don't have a sponsor for every video that I do, unlike a lot of big YouTube channels, because whenever I do say, yep, this video was sponsored by whoever, you know that it's because I do use the product, I do like the product, I do think you guys might find it useful, and I am actually happy to recommend it, even though there's always going to be somebody saying, oh, Jingles, you've sold out. But hopefully the majority of you understand that that is absolutely not the case. So the sponsorship offers come in regularly, and I probably turn down 85% of them. But over the last couple of months, I have no idea what's been going on, but I am getting deluged with sponsorship offers. And most of them are from clothing brands. Clothing brands that I have never heard of. With one exception, I did get an offer about a month ago from Levi Jeans. But here's the thing, clothing brands. Now, I know I'm pretty, but I ain't no fashion model. And these guys are very, very persistent. I mean, I must be getting a dozen or more sponsorship offers every day for the last 2 or 3 months. And that all adds up to a lot of money that I'm leaving on the table. But, well, here's the thing. Who's going to take me seriously recommending, oh, I don't know, American Giant clothing, just to name one of them? And again, I'm sure there's nothing wrong with their clothes, but, well, like I said, I know I'm pretty, but I ain't no fashion model. And if I were to suddenly start pimping out clothing from brands that nobody's ever heard of, who the hell's going to take me seriously when I do recommend something that I do use and I do actually think might be useful? I mean, I've had some of the weirdest offers. Garden furniture, gardening tools. Anybody who has ever seen my garden would know for a second that I was full of shit if I were to suddenly start recommending a certain brand of garden forks and shovels, because you'd know that I had never used them. So, yeah, I think I'll stick to stuff that I do actually use and I am actually happy to recommend. Even if that means I'm only taking advantage of a sponsorship once every month or two, rather than 3 or 4 times a week, which I could easily do, which a lot of big YouTube channels do. I mean, I'm not mentioning any names here, but just take a look at any YouTube channel that's got 1 million subscribers or more, and basically every video they do has got a sponsor. And you know they don't give a shit. You know they're just taking the money for a 90-second sponsored segment. And you know what? That's fine. It clearly works for them. But it wouldn't work for me, because you'd all see through me in a second. And I think the fact that I do only recommend stuff that I think is good is probably better for the sponsor as well, because it probably gets a higher click-through rate because you, my audience, hopefully trust me. And if I were to start selling every single sponsorship that I get, that trust would go away very, very quickly. Anyway, moving on. What's new in the world of wargaming? Well, on the good side, did anybody watch Virtual Tag Fest? I didn't actually go to Tag Fest, so I spent most of Sunday, when I wasn't looking after stray cats, watching Virtual Tag Fest on Twitch, where they had an audience of about 32,000, and probably as many people watching on YouTube as well. And it was really good. I mean, they threw in a load of adverts for World of Tanks. Obviously, you know, they're sponsoring it, they get to do that, but it was a really, really good show. So, well done, World of Tanks, for a very, very good Virtual Tank Fest. Meanwhile, in World of Warships, I swear they're turning into Bethesda. Bethesda haven't been in the news for a while now, have they? They haven't committed any monumental fuck-ups in at least a year. Or if they have, nobody's reporting them. But in World of Warships, so does anybody like playing high-tier German battleships? Frederick the Great, Grosse Kurfürst, the tier 9 and 10? How much fun have they been recently? Yeah, not much. Do you know why that is? So, you may be aware that there's a new German battlecruiser line coming out. And some of these German battlecruisers have seriously big 16-inch or 406mm guns. However, recently, a couple of users on Reddit noticed that the 406mm guns on the German Tier 10 battleship that's already in game and has been for ages, the Grosse Kurfürst, and its predecessor at Tier 9, the Frederick the Great, the guns weren't doing as much damage as everybody was used to. The armor-piercing shells are supposed to do 12,700 damage, but after playing a couple of matches, people found that the shells were only doing 11,500 damage per citadel hit. What's going on here? Well, it didn't take too long for people to notice that the shells, rather than the guns, but the shots that they fire on the Frederick the Great and the Grosse Kurfürst were the same shells that are fired by a couple of these new German battlecruisers. German battlecruisers that were rather heavily nerfed in the last round of devblog changes. Yeah, that's right. They nerfed the German battlecruisers, which aren't even in the game yet, and managed to accidentally nerf the Frederick the Great and the Grosse Kurfürst, which are in the game and have been for years, as well. Because instead of giving the battlecruisers new ammunition, they just copied and pasted the values over from the existing German Tier 9 and 10 battleships. But don't worry, They're aware that it's a problem, and they do have plans to fix it in the next patch, like, a month from now. In the meantime, have fun in your random battles with your German Tier 9 and 10 battleships. Now, if I were to conduct a quick straw poll of World of Warships players and ask them what ship do they hate playing against the most? And you can't just say aircraft carriers, right? You have to pick a specific ship. I'm sure there would be lots and lots of votes for the FDR, Tier 10 Premium Aircraft Carrier. I'm sure there'd be quite a few votes for the Petropavlovsk. But I'm sure there'd also be a lot of votes for the Smolensk. Premium Tier 10 Soviet cruiser. You know, the one with the rapid-fire HE spam 130mm guns that just sits inside smoke screens, burns you down, then relocates, sits inside a smoke screen, burns you down and relocates. The one that has such light armour that if a battleship catches it in the open and shoots at it, all of the shells overpenetrate. Yeah, that thing. The one that everybody absolutely hates. Hold that thought. So, I'm browsing the dev blog again recently and was quite surprised to see that the next major line to be introduced into World of Warships are going to be Pan-Asian cruisers. I have to admit, I did not see that one coming. Not that there's anything wrong with the idea of Pan-Asian cruisers, but, well, it's not really a nation though, is it? It's a group of nations that kind of got forgotten. The Pan-Asian destroyers happened, and that was so long ago. I mean, we've had so much since then that the idea of expanding the Pan-Asian line with a new line of ships really took me by surprise. On the one hand, unlike all of these new Russian aircraft carriers that never existed and nobody asked for, because, more aircraft. Yay, that's just what we want in World of Warplanes. Oh wait, sorry, I mean World of Warships. But at least these Pan-Asian cruisers did actually exist. Admittedly, most of them were British, American or Russian designs, with some modifications. But they did actually exist. In fact, in one case, we're getting a Pan-Asian version of a British cruiser that isn't even in the game in the Royal Navy line yet, the Dido class. So, that's a thing. But then I started, and by the way, they haven't actually published specific individual details on each of the new proposed ships, but they have explained how they're going to play. So, here we are, quoting directly from the dev blog. The ships of this new branch are distinguished by their small caliber guns, high rate of fire, powerful deep water torpedoes, but rather low survivability. All cruisers have a smoke generator consumable, with a reduced reload time. So, the Smolensk, everybody's least favourite Tier 10 premium Soviet light cruiser, which sits in smoke and spams rapid fire and high explosive, was so universally detested that Wargaming decided, you know what we should do? We should put an entire line of cruisers into the game that play like the Smolensk. This, right after they put double carrier in clan battles, submarines in ranked battles, Russian aircraft carriers that nobody asked for, and barely a month after they made this big song and dance about how they were listening more to the community and taking player feedback into consideration. I swear you couldn't make this shit up. Well, I think that just about wraps it up for this 400th episode of Mingles with Jingles. Here's to 400 more. Hope you enjoyed it, and happy birthday to Brandon, 24 years old, on Thursday. And as always, take care, stay safe, and I'll catch you next time.